They said I was wasting time, floating through life. No drive, no fire, no future. She said it the worst, like a final verdict. No ambition, she scoffed, laughing into her wine glass. And the room agreed. They all did. But they didn't see the blueprints in my silence. They didn't know how heavy bricks feel when you carry them alone. Every skipped night out, every quiet no, I whispered when I wanted to scream yes. They thought I was stalling. I was saving. They thought I was lazy. I was building. Not on Instagram, not on LinkedIn, but in real life. The kind that hands you a key and says, "This is yours." I'm Jordan Taylor, 29, from Charlotte, North Carolina. And this is how I bought my first house, right under the nose of the woman who said I'd never make it. I wasn't supposed to be this. From the moment I could spell my name, my path was laid out like a perfect, pressure-packed roadmap. My dad used to joke, "You'll be Dr. Taylor one day, saving lives or making headlines. Either way, we'll be proud." And at first, I believed him. I got good grades. I never skipped class. I helped raise my little brother when mom worked night shifts. Responsibility wasn't just expected of me. It was tattooed on my back before I even knew what freedom tasted like. In high school, I was the safe bet, the one teacher said would go far. That phrase haunted me more than anything. Go far.
But where? And at what cost?
I enrolled at UNC Chapel Hill as a pre-med major. Everyone clapped at the family barbecue when I got in. My Auntie Sharon even printed me a sweatshirt that said Future MD in sparkly letters. I wore it once, then buried it at the bottom of my drawer. Because as soon as I got to campus, I felt the cracks under the foundation. My roommates talked about trauma surgeries like they were Marvel movies. I had panic attacks in biochemistry. I was miserable, but I smiled through it because quitting wasn't part of the Taylor vocabulary. By sophomore year, I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor. But saying it out loud felt like swallowing broken glass. I didn't know how to tell my parents that their golden child wanted out. So I stayed. I gritted my teeth, scraped through labs, and flinched through every family phone call. Then came her. Her name was Brielle Carson. She was in my dorm hall, sleek, smart, and radiating the kind of confidence I faked. She was a business major, already pitching startups at mixers and sliding into internships like a Wall Street prodigy. We were never close friends, but we shared classes, mutuals, and coffee shop tables during finals. She noticed I always looked tired. One afternoon, after I barely touched my latte, she raised her eyebrows and said, "You know, you look like someone who's trying to fit into someone else's ambition." She chuckled. "Maybe it's not yours at all." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She was right, and her words slid into my brain like poisoned honey. Months passed, and I finally cracked. One morning, instead of going to chem lab, I walked straight into the registrar's office and changed my major to communications. I didn't call my parents. I just did it. That same night, I called my mom. The silence after I told her was deafening. "Are you saying you're giving up?" she asked.
No.
"I'm choosing myself." That's what quitters say, Jordan. My dad didn't even call back. Thanksgiving was awkward. My uncles avoided eye contact. My cousin Nicole said, "So, what are you going to do with a communications degree?"
Blog.
They all laughed. I laughed too. Kind of. And Brielle? Oh, she really laughed when she heard the news. We bumped into each other at a campus event months later. She was surrounded by recruiters and sipping sparkling water out of a stemless glass. She looked me up and down and said, "Communications, huh? Guess you're just vibing now." "Just figuring things out," I replied. She smirked. "Some of us don't have time for vibes, Jordan. Some of us want more." It wasn't even what she said. It was how easily she dismissed me. As if I had dropped off some invisible ladder. As if I wasn't playing anymore. She told a mutual friend later, "Jordan has no ambition. He's just coasting." That sentence floated around campus, like smoke. I started hearing it everywhere. People didn't say it directly to me, but they didn't need to. "You'll figure it out eventually," some would say, gently. "She's just in her exploration era," others whispered. "She's not in a rush." She's finding herself. All these euphemisms. None of them helpful. They were polite ways of saying, she fell off. My last year of college, I stopped attending events. I moved off campus. I worked part-time jobs, waitressing, data entry, sometimes overnight shifts at a front desk, just to pay rent. Nobody asked about my dreams anymore. They just hoped I wouldn't embarrass them. Graduation came and went. I didn't throw a party. My parents smiled in pictures, but it was the kind of smile people wear when they're watching a slow-motion train wreck and trying to pretend it's a fireworks show. By then, Brielle had landed a consulting job in New York. She posted a pic in front of some shiny building with the caption, "Ambition looks good on me." And all the comments agreed. I liked the photo. Don't ask me why. Maybe I still wanted to be seen. After college, I moved back to Charlotte. Not because I wanted to, but because it was all I could afford. I got a customer service job at a tech company that treated us like disposable batteries. My family never said it, but I could feel it every time we gathered for dinner. This isn't what we raised you for. Even my little brother, Chase, stopped asking for advice. I kept to myself. I rented a small room in a house with 3 other girls who barely talked to each other. I cooked pasta 5 nights a week, paid off credit card bills one painful payment at a time, and collected rejection emails like postcards. I didn't know where my life was going, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not to school, not to medicine, not to pretending. And somewhere in that limbo, I started writing. Not essays, not blogs, just notes, ideas, budget spreadsheets, daily affirmations, thoughts about money, value, and worth. I created a folder on my laptop called Not Useless. I didn't know what it would become, but it made me feel like I wasn't completely lost. Nobody saw what I was doing. I didn't post it. I didn't talk about it. At family gatherings, my mom would still say things like, "She's between things right now," and "She's just figuring herself out." That hurt more than anything, because by then, I was building something. But it was underground. It hadn't sprouted yet. The last time I saw Brielle was at a mutual friend's engagement party. She was glowing, new job, new clothes, new fiancé. When she saw me, she tilted her head and said, "Still in Charlotte, huh?" "Yeah," I said, sipping water and smiling. "Still here." She narrowed her eyes. "Must be nice to live slow. Some people need that." I nodded. "Some of us build quietly." She blinked, and for a moment I thought she got it, but she just turned away and laughed with someone else. That was the moment I realized I didn't have to prove her wrong. I just had to keep going. And I did. It started with a spreadsheet. Not a glamorous startup. Not some viral side hustle. Just a spreadsheet I built to figure out how long I could afford to keep living the way I was. It had columns for rent, groceries, loan payments, emergency savings, which was always at 0, and a big, bold red cell labeled Dream Fund. It was a joke at first, just something to remind myself that there had to be something more than just making ends meet. I worked full-time at a customer service desk for a mid-sized tech firm. The hours were brutal, the calls soul-draining, but the paycheck came every other Friday. I learned to stretch $50 like it was $500. I cooked every meal at home. I walked instead of driving. And I made a promise to myself. Every time I got paid, something, anything, had to go into that red cell. At first, it was $5. Then 10. Then 20. No one cheered. No one noticed. But for me, it was everything. Around that time, one of my roommates moved out. I took over her space and turned it into a mini home office. Second-hand desk. A corkboard I found on the curb. And the folder from college, Not Useless, opened again for the first time in months. I started teaching myself about personal finance. Not just the basics, but deep dives. Credit scores. FHA loans. High-yield savings accounts. I devoured YouTube videos from women who looked like me and spoke like me and made me believe that ownership wasn't just for people on magazine covers. I began sharing what I learned in small, anonymous posts on Reddit and niche Facebook groups. I used a burner name, Taybuilds. Nobody knew it was me. That made it easier. It also made it real. My inbox started filling up with messages like, "Hey, your post helped me create my first budget, thank you. I didn't know how to even start. Your breakdown was the first thing that made sense." It wasn't thousands of people, but it was someone, and that was enough. One message hit me hard. It was from a woman named Denise, 62 years old, who had been recently widowed and was trying to figure out how to live on just her pension. She wrote, "I don't know how I ended up here. My husband always took care of the money. Now I feel like I'm drowning." I responded with a gentle, three-part guide on how to separate essentials from non-essentials, how to negotiate bills, and where to find free community support. A week later, she replied, "I made the calls. I cried through some of them, but I did it. I can breathe again." I read that message 4 times in a row. Then I closed my laptop and cried into my hands. It didn't make headlines, but it mattered. From that point on, I gave myself a new goal: help one person a week. That was it. I didn't have a product. No LLC. No branding. Just a mission. Slowly it evolved. I started making free digital worksheets, budget planners, debt payoff trackers, printable affirmations. I shared them through Google Drive links. One day, someone emailed me and said, "You should really sell these." I hesitated. It felt weird charging for something that came from my own healing. But I also knew my time had value. So I created a Gumroad page and priced the downloads at $5 each. To my shock, someone bought one within 24 hours. Her name was Trina. She sent a message with the receipt. "This is worth so much more than $5. Thank you for making it accessible." From there, it snowballed. Not viral,
Not fast.
but steady. $5 turned into $50 a week. Then $200 a month. Then $500. It never replaced my main job, but it gave me something far more valuable: direction. By year 2, I'd launched a newsletter. Just once a month. Then bi-weekly. Then weekly. People wrote back, "I forward your emails to my sister. My teenage daughter is using your worksheets. You're helping me teach my kids what I never learned." And all this, all of it, was still happening in that tiny rented room with thrifted furniture and a chair that creaked every time I shifted my weight. Nobody in my family knew. I didn't post it on social media. Not because I was ashamed, but because it still felt fragile. Like blowing on it too hard would make it vanish. But I was also doing something in the background that no one expected: saving. Every bonus, every worksheet sale, every overtime shift I agreed to at work, I funneled it into that dream fund. By the time I turned 27, it was sitting at $11,800. I remember staring at that number one night and thinking, this is more than money. This is proof. Proof that I wasn't lazy, that I wasn't floating, that Brielle didn't know who I was. The thought of her still lingered sometimes. Her words, her laughter, that polished smirk. But she didn't fuel me anymore. What kept me going were people like Denise and Trina, and every anonymous message from a stranger who said, "I felt seen." That summer, I volunteered to teach a free budgeting workshop at a local library. It wasn't fancy. Fluorescent lighting, folding chairs, about a dozen people. But there was one woman, Maria, who came in with a notebook already half-filled. She took notes like her life depended on it. After the workshop, she approached me and said, "My son is autistic. We're trying to buy a house that fits his needs. No one explains this stuff in plain English like you do." I handed her a printed version of my latest planner. She hugged me. I stood in that hug for an extra second. Because that moment, that was when I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was leading. It still didn't look impressive to outsiders. I still lived in a house I didn't own.
Still took the bus sometimes.
Still wore clothes from last season's clearance rack. But internally, I had shifted. My nights were no longer filled with dread. I looked forward to building, to serving, to owning my narrative on my terms. One night, I opened Zillow. Just for fun. At least, that's what I told myself. But it wasn't fun. It was research. And for the first time in my life, I knew what I could afford and what I wanted. Not the biggest house. Not the trendiest zip code. Just something solid. Safe. And mine. I found a listing that made my heart stop. 2 bedrooms. A tiny porch. Worn hardwood floors that had survived decades. And a lemon tree in the backyard. It was outside Charlotte, in a modest neighborhood where the mailboxes leaned a little and the kids still rode bikes after sunset. The asking price was $168,000. My dream fund by then? $19,300. I knew I still had a ways to go, but for the first time ever, I believed I could make it. I made an offer on the house 6 months later. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't romantic. It was spreadsheets, late-night calculators, down payment assistance programs, and dozens of emails to a loan officer named Mr. Hunt who called me Miss Taylor like I was someone important. The seller countered. I negotiated. We settled on $162,500. I brought $18,000 to the table. Every dollar of it had a story. Tips I tucked away during my waitressing days. Worksheet sales I almost didn't price. Overtime bonuses from nights I worked 2 shifts back to back. It wasn't luck. It was labor. When the offer was accepted, I sat in silence for 15 minutes, just staring at my phone. Then I texted one person. I did it. It was my little brother, Chase. He replied instantly. Wait, like bought a car?
No. A house.
Then came the FaceTime, the swearing, the disbelief, the pride. He was the first person in my family to know. The next day, I posted a single photo to my private Instagram, just the front steps of the house with the caption, "Keys." That was it. Messages flooded in. Some were shocked. Wait, you bought a house? How? No way you're a homeowner already. Others were condescending in that subtle way. Who helped you? Family. Must have gotten a deal. But the ones that stung the most were the ones that said nothing at all.
My mom didn't call.
My dad sent a thumbs-up emoji. My Aunt Sharon wrote, "You've always been creative with your choices." And Brielle? Silence. She viewed the story, of course. That same little eye icon with her name on it. Nothing else. It was as if my biggest victory didn't fit into their narrative, so they just ignored it. But I couldn't ignore the growth happening around me. The budgeting workshops became monthly. I got invited to speak at a community event about first-time homeownership. My newsletter crossed 5,000 subscribers. I was making $1,500 per month in passive income from digital products, coaching sessions, and downloadable tools. It wasn't just side hustle money anymore. It was real. Still, when I sat at family dinners, the conversation flowed past me like a river avoiding a stone. My cousin got promoted at her law firm. Everyone clapped. My uncle launched a food truck. They passed his business cards around.
Me?
I once mentioned I was teaching a workshop for women in transitional housing. My mom nodded and said, "That's sweet of you."
Sweet.
Not smart. Not impactful. Just sweet. One evening, I overheard my dad telling a neighbor, "Jordan's doing some nonprofit stuff right now. You know, helping people out." It wasn't a lie, but it also wasn't the truth. I wasn't helping people out. I was building a financially sustainable ecosystem that taught marginalized folks how to take back control of their money and their lives. But to my family, if it didn't come with a badge or a title or a building, it wasn't real.
It used to bother me.
Used to keep me up at night, drafting imaginary speeches where I'd finally tell them everything I'd built and how they'd all underestimated me. I'd lay it out like a resume and end with, "Do you see me now?" But I never did, because I learned something unexpected. Silence can be fuel if you know how to burn it right. So I kept growing. I invested in branding, rebuilt my site, started doing client sessions over Zoom. I opened a high-yield savings account called Second Home. Just the name made me smile. I hired a part-time virtual assistant to help with scheduling. I wrote a mini ebook called "Finance Isn't a Personality, It's a Skill." It got downloaded over 10,000 times. But still, my family couldn't reconcile their image of me with what I'd become. One night, during a cousin's birthday dinner, someone asked what I was working on. Before I could answer, my mom jumped in and said, "Oh, she's got this cute little blog about budgeting." I froze. A blog? I opened my mouth, closed it. Then Chase, bless his bold heart, said, "Actually, she just bought a house with money she saved from that blog." The table went quiet for a second. Then someone changed the subject. That's when I knew it wasn't that they didn't believe in me. It's that they couldn't accept that I succeeded without their version of success. But their disbelief? It didn't stop my deposit from clearing. Didn't stop the mortgage from being in my name. Didn't stop the keys from jingling in my pocket every morning when I left for work. I'd paint walls on weekends, fix leaky faucets with YouTube tutorials, plant flowers by the porch just to watch them bloom. One day, I posted a time-lapse video of me painting my living room on TikTok, just for fun. It got 32,000 views, then 100,000. By the end of the week, it had 2.3 million views. People weren't just watching, they were commenting. This is the energy I needed. She's not playing games. From overlooked to homeowner? Yes, please. Following for more slow win stories. And that's what I started calling them. Slow wins. Not flashy. Not loud. But real. I made a follow-up post talking about how I did it, budgeting, staying focused, learning to ignore noise. That post turned into a video series. The series turned into a course. And the course sold out in 48 hours. That month, I earned more than I made in a year at my first job out of college. I stared at the numbers, heart pounding, and whispered. She said I had no ambition. But I didn't say it out of anger. I said it with wonder, with disbelief at my own becoming. I wanted to share that moment with someone. Anyone. But I also knew this story was mine, not theirs. Not for validation. Just for truth. Sometimes I still get texts like, "So proud of you. Didn't know you were doing all that. Wow, you're really serious about this." I smile. I say thank you, but I don't need the approval anymore. Because I've built something that doesn't require applause to exist. A business. A home. A life. And all of it, every single brick, was laid down quietly while they thought I was just floating. The turning point came on a Tuesday morning. Unremarkable on the surface, but the kind of morning you remember forever. I was standing outside the small, gray house with white trim, clutching a key I'd waited nearly a decade to earn. The realtor had just driven off, and it was just me now. Just me and the door. The same door I dreamed about opening when people laughed behind mine. I stood there for a while, letting it settle in. I did this. Then I unlocked it. Alone. The air inside smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Bare walls. Quiet light streaming through cheap blinds. Not fancy. Not flashy. But mine. Every square inch of it bought with my own sweat, my own restraint, my own will. I walked from room to room, palms touching the drywall like I was blessing it. My fingers brushed the edge of the windowsill where one day plants would live. Where someday, maybe, my future kids might sit and read. And then my phone buzzed. Tasha. Of course. A voice note. Not a call. Not a message. A voice note. She always preferred to speak without interruption. "Hey, so my friend Simone said she saw you in the South End. Are you living over there now? Wait, don't tell me you're renting one of those tiny apartments by the train tracks?" Yikes. Anyway, let's catch up. My blood boiled. "No, Tasha. I'm not renting. I bought." For a moment, I thought about not responding. But this time, silence didn't feel powerful enough. I wanted her to know. Not to brag, not to gloat, but because I needed her to sit with the truth she'd always been too loud to hear. I took a picture. Me on the front porch. Keys in hand. No caption. Just that. She replied in 5 minutes flat. "Wait. What is this? You bought a house?" I typed slowly. "Yep. My first. Closed this week. South End. 3-bed, 2-bath. Still smells like new paint." There was a long pause. Then came the flood of messages. "Wait, how? You never said anything. I thought you weren't doing, big things like this yet. You actually own it? Like it's yours?" I let the messages sit. I wanted her to feel the weight of every "you can't, you won't, and you're not like that." Because I was. I am. She eventually called. This time, I picked up. "Jordan." "Hey, Tasha." "Girl, why didn't you tell anyone? This is huge. Like, I didn't even know you were looking." "I wasn't looking. I was working." She laughed nervously. "Okay, but, I mean, this is big. I'm proud of you. Seriously. I didn't think. I mean, I didn't expect this." There it was. The quiet confession behind all her years of condescension. She never thought I would do it. She didn't believe I could because I didn't show my ambition the way she did, loud online, filtered through motivational quotes and networking events. But I never needed applause. I needed keys. "You remember what you said to me at that party?" I asked her. Silence. "The night you told everyone I had no ambition." Another beat of silence. "I didn't mean it like that," she said quickly. I don't know. I was drunk. I didn't know where you were headed." I nodded even though she couldn't see it. "Well, I did," I said. "I knew exactly where I was headed." A long breath on her end. "Congrats, Jordan. For real. You proved a lot of people wrong." "No," I said softly. "I proved myself right. And for the first time in our friendship, she didn't have anything clever to add. Just silence. Sometimes silence is the most honest apology." After we hung up, I sat in the middle of my empty living room floor, the hardwood cool against my back. I looked around at the space that everyone said I'd never fill, the life they thought I'd never build. And all I could think was, now what? Because once you break through the ceiling they built above you, the sky doesn't scare you anymore. The funny thing is, I never bought the house for revenge. I bought it for peace. But karma has a sense of humor. And sometimes, it shows up with a spare key. 3 weeks after I moved in, I got a call. It was from Megan. Megan, the one who called me unambitious. The one who used to giggle when I talk about dreams. The one who once said, "You'll probably end up renting your whole life." I hadn't heard from her in over a year. Not since she left for San Francisco with her boyfriend. Not since that night at dinner where she laid into me in front of everyone. So when I saw her name flash across my screen, I stared at it. Just stared. And then, I picked up. "Jordan." Her voice was tight, the way someone sounds when they're holding pride in one hand and desperation in the other. "Yeah." "Hey, weird question, but do you still live in Charlotte?" "Just moved into my first house, actually." Silence.
Oh, wow.
"That's amazing. What's up, Megan?" She paused, then exhaled. "My boyfriend and I broke up. I had to move back to town. I'm staying with my sister for now, but it's complicated. I was wondering if you knew anyone renting a room. Something short-term." I almost laughed. Not out of cruelty, but because of the poetry of it all. Here was the woman who told me I had no ambition, now indirectly asking me for a roof. And I had one. A brand new one. Bought with every ounce of the ambition she claimed I lacked. I told her I'd ask around. I never followed up. Not because I was bitter, but because I realized something more important. I didn't need to prove anything to Megan. Not anymore. The moment I held the keys in my hand, I proved it to myself. She could keep her opinions. She could keep her shade. I had something better. Foundation. Real roots. These walls held more than drywall and paint. They held discipline, patience, integrity. That house became more than shelter. It became a symbol of quiet progress, of slow, steady power, of a dream realized without noise. Now, sometimes when I pull into the driveway at sunset, I sit there a minute. I look at the porch light glowing, at the little welcome mat I bought at Target, at the trees lining my yard. And I smile, because ambition doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't need to be flashy. Sometimes ambition is just showing up, even when no one believes in you.
Especially then.
If you've ever been underestimated, if someone's ever looked you in the eye and told you who you couldn't be, let this be a reminder. You don't owe them a reaction. You owe yourself the work. The quiet, consistent, unshakable work that builds the life they swore you'd never have. Ambition isn't always loud. It doesn't always wear a title or a suit. Sometimes it looks like sacrifice, like saying no to parties, like waking up early, like choosing long-term peace over short-term praise. They'll laugh. They'll doubt you. They might even leave. Let them. Because one day, you'll hold the keys to a dream they said was too big for you. And in that moment, it won't matter who clapped. It'll only matter that you never stopped moving, even when the world told you to stand still. So build,
Grow. Become.
and let the life you create speak louder than any insult ever could.